The digital world moves fast, but real growth comes from real conversations. This is e-Coffee with Experts, where marketers and founders share what's actually working in SEO, AI, and digital growth. Grab your coffee and fuel your mind as we chat with top minds about their wins, struggles, and lessons you won't find in a blog post. Brought to you by Digital Web Solutions, we bring real talk to help you grow your business, one episode at a time. Let's get started.
Hey, hi everyone. Welcome to your show, Coffee with Experts. This is your host, Ranmay here. And today we have David Carpenter, who is the president and digital strategist at Connection Model LLC with us. Hey, David, how's it going?
Hello, Ranmay. Very well. How are you doing?
Good, yeah. Great. So, David, before we move any forward, let's get to know more about you. Let's get to know the human behind the mic. How were you growing up as a kid? How did you land up in the digital marketing space? How has been the experience thus far? And we'll take it off from there.
Sure. Well, the short version is when I was in school, I planned to be a journalist or a lawyer. So I liked persuasion, and I was judged to be pretty persuasive. Also like journalism. So I became the co-editor-in-chief of my high school paper. And then I found out that journalists didn't typically make a lot of money. So that was kind of ruled out. So when I got into college, I pursued marketing really because my buddies and my roommates all told me that, if you pursued marketing degree at the University of Washington, you didn't have to take more foreign language. And so I was kind of done with foreign language. And so that's literally how I ended up in the business school, because it seemed like the easiest path. But fortunately, while I was there, getting into my junior year, senior year, I discovered international business and I discovered marketing. And so I really had a passion for like consumer research and group projects in the business school. So I really had fun with that, dreaming up all kinds of, swimming pools in your home in the future, that kind of thing. So I decided that that's how I would go out into the world. So then hit the job market, and the up-and-coming company in the area was Microsoft. And they were hiring at that time tons of people from out of the area, tons of people from all over the world, but didn't seem to get any takes myself. But my wife and I at that time, we tried to get on with Microsoft, and it just didn't really work out. So I landed up with some companies that were doing some crazy things, import-export data, that kind of thing. They were going to be the next Microsoft, and that of course didn't work out. So I got into the field of printing and mailing, and then specifically direct mail. And so I kind of, over the period of time, I worked my way up from doing direct mail for political campaigns for a large printer, direct mail house, into laser printing, like digital statements for AirTouch Cellular, which became Verizon Cellular, to creating a whole program to do the monthly billing program for World Vision. And I really liked that. I really liked the aspect of direct marketing and the personalized nature and using databases to create personalization. But what I really didn't like was the cost involved. So the postage cost and the cost of printing and the cost of paper and the waste that's involved. I mean, you send so much direct mail, so much waste out in the environment for so little response, that I started to see in about 2005 that there was a much better way. And I actually went to my company at the time, this direct marketing agency. It was a division of Interpublic Group, fourth largest ad agency at that time. And I said, we could be handling responses. We could be getting leads a lot more efficiently through URLs, personalized URLs, emails. We don't have to be sending out like business reply cards. And the president of that agency actually said to me, he said, the more you talk about the internet and online and everything, you're just literally taking money out of our bank account. Like, we make our money by putting ink on paper, and we put postage on that to get it out there. And all these solutions you're talking about have a negative impact on our bottom line. So he didn't want anything to do with my digital ideas. And so I left in 2006, pursue a software company that had Cisco as its largest client. And in about 2008, I was really looking to do something on my own. I was kind of frustrated with the way the world was working and the way people were just magnifying inefficiency. And so I figured all the things I had learned in my direct marketing career in printing and mailing and direct marketing agency, all the strategy that went into direct marketing and testing could be replicated in the online world. And it wouldn't take more than maybe a single client and a website generating leads to pay my mortgage. So that's literally how I started Connection Model. I just said, if I can just get a mortgage. And fortunately, through my church, I found my first client within the first couple of months. He was a Microsoft partner who had been cut off from Microsoft He'd been cut off his lead flow. And he said, if you can give me, I think it was like 5 leads a month, I can pay you $4,000 a month. It was that kind of a relationship. And that's how we started. And ever since then, we've just grown organically.
Lovely. You did not leave Microsoft, did you?
No, I never worked for Microsoft. I had Microsoft as a client at that.
Some way or the other is what I meant. In some way or the other, starting from applying for Microsoft to, kind of then working from a client, this thing relationship,
as
you
a
did not leave
client.
Microsoft.
Right.
Yeah, lovely. Starting your agency, getting your first client is difficult, David. And then, like they say, 0 to 1 is one story, and that's from 1 to 100 it is another, right? Scale, right?
Yep.
So give us, the story behind how were you able to scale your agency connection model, and what are you guys now in terms of operational size? What niche do you cater to? What kind of clients do you have? And then how challenges, scaling up your own agency?
Yep, absolutely. So in the beginning days, it really was all about relationships and referrals. So we'd find somebody that knew somebody that knew somebody that needed more support from their agency or needed a marketing project done. And we'd do great work for them. And they'd say, this is being brought internally, but I want you to talk to our friend Steve. Steve has some need for a person like you. So we grew 100% our referral in the early days. And what we found out was that really good work, really quality work, very efficient, total transparency, and great reporting were the keys to making clients really loyal. And so we had clients in the early days. We landed a client who's a huge exporter. They're a top 40 exporter out of the US. They're based in Eastern Washington. And they stayed with us for 11 years based on good communication, good work, trust, transparency. We never ripped them off. We never tried to get them into areas that they weren't comfortable with. And we delivered a lot of qualified leads for them over the years. So the agency has just continued to grow like that. And so our niche is really, at one point, we were the only HubSpot. We became HubSpot partners early on. So HubSpot's had a lot to do with our growth. At one point, we were the only HubSpot Platinum agency, I believe, that had any kind of pharma, biotech, medical experience, chops, or clients. So we became really a poster child for one of their speakers that was going around talking about how HubSpot agencies could help in the pharma business. And so we landed some business there. We got into biotech with a few companies there. We've always been strong in medical practices, medical companies. That led us to our project work for UnitedHealth Group. And we've really been strong for years in software as a service, particularly. So B2B, software as a service, manufacturers, those are our biggest niches in real estate, commercial real estate, and luxury real estate.
Lovely. And through the years, you have had, the opportunity of working with a lot of Fortune 500 brands and a lot of large scale enterprises. So, give us some examples like the UnitedHealth, like Amdocs. What are the biggest challenges, kind of getting those sort of clients onboarded, and how are you able to serve them? Yeah,
the UnitedHealth healthcare story is a really neat one because they had a division. At that time, it was a very small division called Optum. And we found out that UHG Corporate actually supports 1,800 websites. So our people that we knew through personal networking had a division that needed help, and they needed a 1-year full-time, responsive, answer questions in 24 hours kind of thing. And they couldn't deal with the big bureaucracy that at that time was UHC IT. So we built a website for them. We populated that with content. We ran and we drove eyeballs to it. We created a big marketing swell for the Optum program in the early days. And that was a really interesting experience. Of course, it wasn't meant to last because as soon as UHG IT found out that somebody was going rogue, they swallowed that program up. But just more recently, we've worked with Amdocs, which is a huge, I think they're a $4 or $5 billion player. And they support companies like T-Mobile, which is just a couple blocks down the road from us. And they support AT&T and all over the world. And they actually generate statements for them, which ironically is kind of where I got my start in direct marketing, generating statements for AirTouch Cellular. But we ran some programs for Amdocs in social media, and we just filled a niche that they didn't have. They didn't have internal experience in good social media marketing. We found a value, we found a relationship. We offered them good transparency, great communication, FaceTime. We're just down the street from us. Most of our clients over the 15, 16 years have been remote, and many of our clients are on the East Coast. But in that case, Amdocs was just down the street. It was a great relationship. Yeah. So I think the interesting thing about big companies is that those projects take just as much time as the little projects, and they pay a lot more. So I think you welcome them when you can get them.
Right. Long sales cycles, multiple decision-making departments or functions, right? Yeah, I mean, you get approval from one, then you have got so many hierarchies there, you get multiple approvals, and then the onboarding happens, and then you have to kind of ensure that all of the teams, the user base, the IT, the digital team, everything is in place. And then again, getting the invoicing done through their structure is again a challenge, right? So give us more on that front, David. Let's say you've onboarded a large scale enterprise
Yeah.
client,
Yeah.
how does the
Yeah.
funnel look like from there on to kind of ensure that delivery is in place and everything is in place around in your agency?
Yeah, it's interesting because corporate America has all these processes in place, right? Developed by
Mm-hmm.
purchasing and developed by managers. We've really avoided the RFP game. We really don't submit for very few
Yeah.
at all, for very many at all, because you
Okay.
have such a high investment of time on your part and such a low likelihood of success. So I
Yeah.
learned that from the president of my agency that I was at in 2004 to 2006, and he told me, he said, "Don't compete for RFPs, design them if you must, and ensure that you win." And I've always taken that to heart. So if someone wants to go out for RFP and they want my opinion, we did this for a big healthcare company in Florida recently. I'll help them and I'll set the odds in our favor and then comply with them and then plan to win that RFP. But as far as just going out for a cattle call, we don't do that. So we tend to find someone that has the energy behind an itch they need to scratch. It was the case of Amdocs. We had somebody, an executive that needed something done that he couldn't get done in normal ways. And so he sought out a solution and he empowered his people to go find a partner that could deliver that solution. And he cut through all the red tape. And we didn't have to go through purchasing and we didn't have to go through HR and compliance and all that kind of stuff. The internal team that we found that we built relationships with took care of all that for us. So that's the key, is finding the itch that they have to scratch. Finding something you can do better than anyone else and better than someone bigger than you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you nailed it, right? So talking about, and you touched upon, being a partner with HubSpot, right? And obviously you would have
Mhm.
worked extensively with platforms like HubSpot and Drip. So what role does automation play here, David, in scaling inbound lead gen? And how do you balance that with, maintaining a human touch?
Yep, that's a great question. I'll tell you a funny story about Drift. In the early days, so HubSpot actually acquired the talent that later left HubSpot and formed Drift. So the two co-founders of Drift were HubSpot employees for a time. Fantastic guys. I met them personally. They were terrific and they really solved users' needs. They really had a passion for developing, for example, user experiences that people would love to use, that were intuitive, that were easy to learn. And so the early days of Drift, we were positive they were going to be the next HubSpot and that they were going to go public. And we embraced the partnership completely. One of the challenges that they had was they were great at technology, but they weren't great at, for example, the unique challenges that companies had. So we had a mutual client in San Francisco who actually hired Drift, I don't remember, many, many years ago for their AI solution. And the challenge with Drift and the Drift product people implementing AI for a technology company was that the AI wasn't ready to go, right? AI pre-COVID was not what it is today. And so the AI would just do wacky things. And the AI would they had the AI running the bot on their homepage, big company, automation anywhere. And it would basically offend people because it would try to put people in buckets too early and things like that. So what we came in to do is we were the problem resolution experts that knew lead generation, that knew how to develop a qualified lead, that knew what was appropriate and inappropriate in a first conversation in a chat on a website. And so we helped fix that big program that they had bought from Drip. They bought a technology solution, but they needed a human execution layer. They needed someone to come in and translate good lead generation strategy, good conversion strategy, and apply that inside the technology. So I think even in a situation like that, there's a role for smart people, smart agencies, people that are nimble, and people that can provide solutions to a client.
Continuing from that, David, you have been in the space and you have seen tech evolve, right, over a couple of decades now. So what is your general take on AI, all the storm that we are in with all these tools coming up by the hour, if not, minute now? Yeah. Where do you think are we heading with all of this?
Yeah, I love it. I love all the changes that's coming. It is overwhelming. I don't find it scary. I know some people are scared of the change. I'll give you a personal take on it first. When I was growing up, my mom was a firm believer in having encyclopedias. So she had the whole stack of Encyclopedia Britannica. And every time a conversation came up in the car, on the way to school, at dinner, and I said, well, what is the Sistine Chapel or whatever it was, she'd say, well, instead of answering it, she was very smart. She was educated. She had a degree from Cornell. She was a teacher her whole life. Instead of answering it, which she easily could have done, she would say, well, go look it up. Because to her, it was more important the process of getting to the answer than the actual answer. And so I just nice. Chuckle when I think of that huge stack of encyclopedias that weighed like 200 pounds. And today, I find the same thing happens. My wife and I are having a conversation, something comes up, and we say, well, I wonder about that. And I turn to Perplexity. That's my go-to answer, my chat's search engine. And so we immediately have the answers. Like, well, something came up today about a local Washington state representative. I wonder if that's the guy you used to work for. And we had the answer in 15 seconds. And so I think it's fantastic on a personal level. I think that things that used to go, people just wouldn't know. People would just be in the dark about something and they would just listen to the voices that were hitting them. They just listen to their teachers and the media and things like that. Well, now you can actually find out the truth for yourself, and you can find out the truth in seconds. So there's no longer any, puzzling, lingering questions. And on a business level, the business level is that AI is fantastic for things like ideation, building you lists, brainstorming, coming up with solutions for things, giving you general structures, but it's not ready for prime time, right? It needs a human editing layer. So it does make mistakes. It does go too far or not far enough. So it's like human edited AI research papers are fantastic, I believe, because it has unlimited resources at its fingertips and stuff like that. But I will comment on AI writing. We do have a client who's experimenting on their own with AI writing, and it's just trash. It is so bad. It is clearly AI written. It adds no value. It's just recycling what's out there at the lowest level content on the web. And I really encourage people not to do that. Right. So I think AI is great in the brainstorming phase, create the outline, create the content, create the questions. Q&As are great. Create the keywords you're going to use. All that stuff is great, but you need a human to write something new and unique and novel, right? You don't want to just recycle the lowest level of the content that's out there on a given topic. And you want to have a human edit it because you want to make sure it's in the right voice and tone that is appropriate for the client. So we've had a good mix. We have a hybrid content production process that we're constantly accelerating and constantly finding ways to use AI more effectively. But we're leaning on the knowledge and the testing of Neil Patel, who says that, he's done a large scale 10,000 post tests. Yeah. He says the AI written content doesn't rank very well, ranks 4% of the time versus 96% of the time it's the human written, human edited stuff that's ranking. So I think there's limitations to what it can do for you creatively.
Lovely, David. Thank you so much for the insights. And finally, David, for our young listeners today, since you have gone through the grind and clearly made it big, for our young listeners who are trying to make a mark or, starting out on their entrepreneurial journey, what is the advice you want to them?
Yeah, I think the big thing to keep in mind for any aspiring entrepreneurs, anyone that wants to develop a company, wants to hit it big, don't go make your prototype first and then search for a customer. Go find a need. Go find a problem that you can solve. Go find the itch that someone needs to scratch that they would pay money to solve, and then craft your solution around that. Because if you can demonstrate that you're solving a real world problem or you're innovating on something that real world people face, people are going to fund you, they're going to guide you, people are going to join you, and you're going to have customers for your solution. So that's the key, is focus on customer need.
Yeah, David, this has been a brilliant session, but before we let you go, a quick rapid fire.
Please.
Okay, your last Google search.
A last Google search? It was a Perplexity search for sure, but if I go back to Google, it was probably like a Lakers score, something like that.
Okay, all right. Your celebrity crush, David?
Megyn Kelly.
All right. Where do we find David Carpenter on Friday evenings after office?
Friday evenings after the office?
Yes.
I will be at happy hour with my wife and our great close friends somewhere in the East Side. having dinner and a happy hour.
Lovely. What did you do with the first paycheck, David? First paycheck of your life?
I probably paid my rent.
Ah, okay. All right. Typical entrepreneur. You're making every buck count. Okay, David, we're not going to grill you any further. You have been a sport. Thank you so much once again for taking our
Thank
time
you.
to do this with us. And for our
You got it.
audiences,
Thanks for having me.
if they want to reach out to you, David, how would they do that?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, of course, or connectionmodel.com. You can interact with our bot, our drip bot up in the top right corner, and you can book time with me.
Lovely. Thank you, David. Cheers, man.
Thank you. Cheers.